Hello, welcome back to the Big Comfy Beanbag. Today I'm going to be talking about Heracles, better known to all of you probably as Hercules and the 12 labors. So, yeah, I do want you to take some notes, but I also want you to just kind of sit back and enjoy this. So maybe you just watch the video one time through and then you can use the PowerPoint afterwards to really mark down some stuff because I do want you to enjoy this because it's such a cool story. Okay, so here we go. So from the moment Heracles is conceived, he is despised by Hera because, of course, once again, he's the child of one of Zeus's love affairs. She does not like him, and apparently there's some inner god wisdom that kind of told her that he was going to be kind of a bigger deal than a lot of Zeus's other kids. So what does she do? As a baby, she sends two big, scary snakes down, and they're poisonous, to take baby Hercules out of the picture. But as some of you have probably seen the Disney version, this does not stop Hercules as he just grabs the snakes and kills them, even as a baby with his strength. Then, later on, Hercules grows up. He's a very strong warrior. He has a wife. He has kids. And Hera does the unspeakable. He goes to bed one night and she sends him into a fit of madness. She basically makes him lose his mind. He thinks that while sleeping, he thinks that he is fighting his enemies. And he wakes up to find that his entire family is slain. And he's the one who killed them. The grief is so hard that he knows he has to redeem himself. As we talked about before, reputation is everything with the Greeks. So he reaches out to his cousin Eurystheus and he says, I need to redeem myself. What can you do to help? And he says, I have some tasks that you can do that will help make the world a better place. So Hercules is like, yes, give me anything. What he doesn't know is that he is in cahoots, or he is teamed up with Hera, Eurystheus is. So his goal is actually not to help Hercules at all, but to make him involve himself in tasks that could kill him. So the first labor, he has to go fight the Nemean lion. The Nemean lion is this big, scary beast. It's bigger than a normal lion, and the biggest thing that it has going for it is its golden fur is impenetrable. You can't cut through it. Nothing will cut it, so he's very hard to kill. Eventually, Hercules takes those big, strong hands of his and he chokes it out, and he starts at the mouth where it's open, and he skins the beast, and he uses the beast's own claws to do it, and then he wears the pelt. So he has armor for the rest of all these battles. This really sets the tone for his miraculous and heroic adventure. Next up, we have the Hydra, probably one of the most famous of all of the 12 labors. The Hydra has a many-headed serpent, and every time you cut one of its heads off, two grow back in its place. So Hercules is chopping off heads. It's not working. Eventually, he realizes he can use a torch and burn the stumps so they don't regrow. After he cuts them off, he kills the beast, and he takes his arrows and dips it in the poison. He dips it in the poisonous blood, and he takes them with him, so he has these toxic arrows that he can use in the rest of the thing. Labor number 3, he has to catch something called the Cyrenian hind, but it's more commonly known as the golden stag. And it's a really, really fast stag. And he has to go catch it down. He can't hurt it. He just has to catch it. And he does so. Next, he goes on to the 4th labor, where he must kill this huge boar. I always mess up this word, I apologize. Erymanthian boar. And it has these huge tusks. It's really big and it's really angry. Doesn't stop Hercules. He goes and slays that big pig. Next up, we change it up. He's in there killing monsters. That's something he does. So this is too easy. We got to change it up. We got to make it harder. He has one day to clean the Augean stables. The stables have been uncleaned for 30 years. And they hold thousands of horses. He has one day. It's an impossible task. So what does Hercules do? He reroutes the 2 closest rivers and washes all of the nasty horse pucky and whatnot right out, cleans them up, no problem for him. Number 6, man-eating birds, the Stymphalian birds. he has to make sure that they leave and never come back. There are a couple different versions. With the most popular version, he gets a gift from the goddess Athena, and he uses that to scare them away. There are other versions where he uses the poisonous arrows that he's already gained from the Hydra, and he shoots them that way as well. The Cretan Bull is next. The Cretan Bull is one of the easiest tasks for him. He even gets offered help from King Minos, which you guys have heard of. And King Minos is like, I'll help you. You know, you're in Crete. This is my place. He's like, I got this. Goes, handles it with ease. Next, man-eating horses. You see the theme? Giant animal eats people. In this case, these were owned by a king called Diomedes. And Diomedes was the leader of a very savage group of people. And there's a couple different versions of this one as well. One of the more common ones that I've heard several times is that he feeds Diomedes to his own horses. And then he leaves the horse to his sidekick, his apprentice at the time. And I don't know about you, but I would not want to be left with that group of man-eating horses if you're a young apprentice just trying to get your feet wet with the whole journeying hero life, right? Next, he has to travel to the Amazon women and their leader, Hippolyta. Hippolyta is this Amazon queen, and they're all women, and she's the daughter of Ares. And there's the non-violent version where he shows up and he's just so impressive that she just hands it over. And then there's the more violent version, which is Hera starts a rumor that he's coming to abduct the queen and take her back. So all the Amazonians, they're out there fighting, and he slays them all. Slays all the daughters of Ares. Next, we have the cattle of the Geryon, and he is this monster with 3 heads, and he has 3 sets of legs all attached at one waist, and he's just this beast of a creature. And Hercules travels really far to this place to do it. He travels across seas, and even there's stories told about how he cracks a mountain in half, which are the Straits of Gibraltar now, and that there's signs that people used to leave gifts for Hercules at this place that he had to do to get through to go and retrieve these cattle. The 11th one is kind of like a double task for him as well. As we get through more and more, it gets harder and harder. And this one, he has to get a golden apple from Hera's sacred garden. This was a gift from Gaia as a wedding present for her and Zeus. So this is something very close to her heart, and it's going to be very difficult to do. Hera's not going to let this happen, right? Well, the garden is guarded by a 100-headed dragon. And this is a really dangerous task. So what Hercules does is kind of a workaround. He goes to the god, Titan actually, Atlas, who holds the world on his shoulders. And he says, if you get me one of these apples, I will hold that for you for a little bit. I'm sure you're tired. You want a little break? And Atlas is more than happy to do it. The only problem is when Atlas comes back, he's like, I don't think I'm going to hand it back. I think you can hold the world now. I'm going to go do whatever I want. That thing's heavy. So Heracles says, okay, listen, you're right. You got me. Let me just adjust my lion pelt. It's sitting a little uneven. If I'm going to be holding this for forever, I'd like to be a little more comfortable. So Atlas says, okay, and he hands it over, and Hercules is like, gotcha. And he leaves him there. The 12th and final labor, he has to go down to Hades, into the underworld, and he has to get Cerberus and bring him back to Eurystheus. And gets down there, and he knows that this dog is very important to Hades, so he goes right to Hades and says, could I borrow your dog, basically? And Hades agrees under one condition. He says, if you can wrestle him unarmed, and defeat him, then I will let you bring him up, as long as he comes back to me. Heracles agrees. He wrestles in bare hands. Gets real intense, but he ends up pulling off the victory. He brings Cerberus up to Eurystheus, and then the dog is eventually returned to its owner, which is obviously kind of a rule breaker as things have gone in the past. And we look at this and go, oh my gosh, look at all these things that Heracles has accomplished. It's amazing. These are impossible tasks for most people. And he sees himself as, okay, I've done this. I've done what I have to do. And he sets himself a funeral pyre, because he's going to basically set his soul free so he can rejoin his family in death. And as he's burning, Zeus is watching and seeing all the pain and suffering that his son is going through, and he can't bear it any longer. So he makes him a god, and he becomes a full god. He joins the other gods in the Elysium fields, as they're called, in heaven, and he is the only demigod ever to become a full god the way he was. Further proving that Hera's, intentions were supported by this idea that he eventually would continue to be around her for eternity. So, just a really, really cool story in my opinion. I hope that you've enjoyed it as well. I just want you to have a light grasp of some of these things. I don't need you to know every detail, but I do need you to kind of understand what are the 12 labors and what he had to do to accomplish those things. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. I will make this PowerPoint available later in the afternoon, so after you watch the video, you can go back and get some notes. But I did want to make sure that you watched first. All right. I'll talk to you soon.